All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks for being here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that Blakely looks a little bit different today. She's got a beard, for starters. If you're listening to this on the audio version, you're in for a treat. We have our friend Justin Green in town. He's visiting nearby, was nice enough to rent a car, drive over. We got some training in, went out to lunch, and we said, hey, why not record a podcast while we're here? Justin is a financial advisor. He specializes in working with coaches, but he has a lot of experience working with regular people. So we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff today. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jonathan. Not as pretty as your co-host, but, hopefully we'll make it work.
You'll do in a pinch.
If people want to just listen to the audio, I don't blame you. This is actually my first in-person podcast recording.
That's awesome.
I have my own podcast, the sponsor of the show, Dollars and Dumbbells Podcast.
There it is.
And, but everything's digital. It's all online, and this is my first in person. So I've got the headphones on. I can hear you talking next to me, and I can hear myself talking. And
it's tripping you out a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can make this work. So
when
happy
you
to be here,
after seeing the Digital Barbell headquarters online, for a couple of years on Instagram and stuff, is it as fancy as the Joe Rogan studio and other things that you've seen online? How's it lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, if Joe Rogan had this studio, he'd be worth a couple $100 million. So, he'll get there someday.
Oh man, but we did get a really good workout in. Got to chit chat a lot during it, but I think weights were sufficiently lifted, and I feel sufficiently pumped. That was a good workout.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so like you said, the sponsor of today's episode is Dollars and Dumbbells. Tell everybody what Dollars and Dumbbells is.
Yeah, Dollars and Dumbbells is the podcast that I host. I bring on online health and fitness coaches to share their stories, their successes, their failures, the challenges that they're having in their business, and I sprinkle in some finance tips. Every now and then. It's just kind of natural that comes out when I talk. So go ahead, give it a listen.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit before we were recording, but you do a lot of interviews, like you said, on your podcast, and that's inspiring to us to continue to reach out to people and have people on, because I always learn when you have people on, both from the insight that they bring and then your reaction to them too. So good job on that. Keep that rolling.
Yeah, I mean, interviews are honestly, anyone who hosts a podcast knows that interviews are way easier. Those solo episodes are so challenging to figure out what you're going to talk about and then just talk to yourself. I mean, you have the co-host with Blakely, so that helps, but interviews for me just allows me to connect with other individuals and just hear their stories, and then I get to meet a bunch of people all around the country, so when I am traveling, I can be like, hey, Jonathan, I'm popping in, let's go work out.
Heck yeah.
So that's the cool thing about it.
I don't think people realize that putting out a 15-minute podcast, even a solo episode, might require 2 hours of work on the back end, and both the prep time, the recording, the editing, the uploading. If you're a baller and you have a producer who handles all that stuff for you, maybe it's
I'm not a baller.
But it's a lot of work. How long have your podcast been rolling? I know you had a quick hiatus from Dollars and Dumbbells, but when did you start it?
Yeah, so it would have been, well, I'm about 130 episodes in, so
that's awesome.
That, about 2.5 years?
Yeah.
I'm not great at math, believe it or not. Yeah, no, so I think it's about 2.5 years. I started, I think it was October of 2021. So yeah, that would be about right. And I pivoted the show to intentional profits, kind of went more broad with it. So those are more finance topics for about 30 episodes, about episode maybe 100 through 125. So they're all still kind of on the Dollars and Dumbbells archives, but yeah, we pivoted back to Dollars and Dumbbells. It seemed to be a fan favorite, and they like the name, and they like the guest stories more than they want to listen to me talking about boring finances.
We've talked about you a lot on this podcast before, because
you've been on the Dollars and Dumbbells podcast. I wish I
you've been
had
on our
up,
podcast before.
Yeah, I wish I had looked up the episode number.
We'll have the producer look it up and put it in the show notes for this episode. But I found you online randomly a couple of years ago and saw what you did, saw in your Instagram profile. I was like, I help coaches with their finances. I'm like, Blakely and I could use a little bit of help getting organized with our finances, because we were transitioning out of me having W-2 income and Blakely owning the gym and also having W-2 income. And then all of a sudden we're left everything is just 1099. Uncle Sam's not taking anything out. We got to figure out how we're going to both save for retirement, because there's no 401k going in automatically. And, it was just, we felt like we were in over our head. So that's when we reached out, and you did a great job helping us figure out what do we need to be doing? What are the action steps? And I would think as a coach, you're a coach too for people on finances.
I 100% consider myself a coach. Financial coach has like a different definition in my industry. But I 100% like a lot of what I do, like I give technical advice, which is kind of where the professional side of being a financial advisor comes into play. But like then I coach people on how to execute.
Yes. And it feels good as a coach to like see somebody recognize you're giving them a plan and actually go put it in place and, you know, get results from it, right?
Absolutely.
Isn't that what we all want as a coach?
Absolutely. The worst feeling in the world is when, you know, I worked at an old firm where we did retirement planning for just, you know, individuals. And, you know, you'd get someone to come in, we'd do a plan, and then, you know, 3 years later, they'd reach back out and do an update. And you're like, oh, cool, this is awesome. Like, we must did a good job. And it's like nothing got implemented. Like, they loved us, right? Clearly, they liked us, come back to us. But, you know, you look and you're like, all the recommendations still apply.
Yeah.
Here's the old plan. Just take this.
That'll be $1,000, please.
Yeah. So, but you know, you said you reached out because, you know, taxes and retirement, those two biggest issues as self-employed individuals and online coaches in general, they don't really think about when, you know, they go out, launch a business, usually more for a passion for what they're doing. The first problem they're going to encounter is taxes. They realize, oh shit,
every year,
you know, there's this thing called self-employment tax, 15.3%. And, you know, it kind of makes your tax bill a little bit worse than when you're an employee because your employer usually pays half of that. So, you know, they usually hit that. And then the second thing is they realize, oh, I'm not planning for retirement at all. And there's a lot of younger individuals, you know, working online. And so they maybe have never even had a job before. So they didn't, you know, they never had a 401k, et cetera. So like it's a foreign concept to them. So those are two of the biggest, I would say, pain points of, you know, online self-employed individuals.
Yeah. You did a recent episode where you kind of talked about some of the most common mistakes that fitness coaches make. And I want to talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about personal finance and other things too, but kind of recap for us, like, what are the most common things you see people, because we do have a lot of coaches that listen, not as many as your podcast for sure, but what are some of the common mistakes coaches make when they are like, I'm going to start charging money for this online coaching thing?
Yeah, I would say, you know, the three biggest things that I see revolve around cash flow, taxes, and investing, retirement investing. You know, the first thing is like they have no understanding of their cash flow. You know, they're either not tracking. You know, I always compare it to, you know, tracking macros. So if you're in MyFitnessPal doing that, like it's the same thing with your expenses, your income in the business and in your personal life, but especially in the business, and separating business and personal cash flow. So that's like the cash flow, getting that under control is usually like step one. Step two is preparing for your tax bill. And that's a big one. That,
right.
You know, when you work for an employer, it's coming out of your paycheck. So it's really not like the only planning you really do at that point is like filling out your W-4 each year to like figure out what they're going to withhold. But for the most part, like give or take, that's going to be pretty accurate, and you're going to have a small refund or you're going to owe a little bit, and you know, whatever, you'll pay it and you'll be fine, but you're not like going to get blindsided with a massive tax bill
right.
like entrepreneurs do. So, you know, that's kind of the second part is like, okay, once you understand your cash flow, are you actually like preparing to use some of that to pay your tax bill?
Yeah.
And then the big one is like, okay, I've built a successful business, money's flowing in, but am I like using it to build wealth? And that's where, you know, I've got the wealthy coach hat on. You know, I really want to help coaches make that transition from like, okay, I've got a very like process oriented, highly efficient, profitable business, and now I'm using it to build wealth outside of the business. So I'm redirecting it into, you know, a solo 401k or a SEP IRA or even a brokerage account, but using that money to invest and actually grow their wealth.
Yeah.
And it could be real estate, et cetera. That's not really, you know, I can advise on that a little bit, but it's not my wheelhouse.
Right. Most people need the basics.
Yeah, those are yeah. Most people, as you know, need the basics, right? Just like fitness.
Yeah.
Once you get your form down, you get the foundations in place, a lot of it just kind of falls in place. It can be automated. You know, there's a lot of technology now too.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of online banks that you can do like a profit first system and just kind of automatically redirect money.
That's a smart way to do it. Like it takes the emotion out of it. It's like put it on autopilot. Just to give you guys a little bit of a funny story and peek into Justin's mind. Like he developed this plan for us, and one of the things was getting our EIN number, getting our account set up with the IRS, and starting to make quarterly tax payments. Because believe it or not, in all the businesses that we've owned over the years, we've always just saved the money on our own outside, on the side. We actually saved our tax money every year. We knew we couldn't just ignore it and get hit with a giant bill.
You were ahead of most people by doing that, at least.
So we let it sit in probably a savings account earning 0.000 something. But anyway, Justin helped us get set up so we could pay our quarterly taxes like you're supposed to do. But Blakely was when it came time to make that first quarterly tax payment, Blakely's like, all right, well, we got the system. We'll do it when we get off this call. And Justin's like, no, we're going to log in. You're going to hide your screen while you type in the sensitive information, and you're going to make the payment while we're on the phone right now. And we did it. It was kind of like a mental hurdle to get over, but I appreciate you making us do that. And it's made making those payments since then a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah, I learned that a while ago. A lot of my advisor friends, they'll just kind of give the advice, and then the client implements it on their own. And I just learned that it doesn't get implemented. And so, of course it takes a little bit more of my time, but I'm like, you know what can we do right now?
Yeah.
At least let's have one call where we can get as much done as possible. Now, realistically, there's things that I'm not going to be able to do for you.
Yeah.
But what can we do right now? Because you just create that momentum. And then you realize, it's not that hard, right? It's not that scary to log into the irs.gov and make a payment. It sucks that they're taking your money, but it's not that scary. And so that's something that I've learned is, when it comes to implementing or executing financial advice, how do we make it as easy as possible?
Mm-hmm. We did an entire podcast episode about the parallels between fitness and finances. This is yet another one.
Yeah, that's why I like working with online health and fitness coaches, because every excuse they can throw at me, I just look at them and say, what if your client said this?
Right.
And then they just kind of look at me and they're like, touche.
Right. It does make it a reality check. Why do you have to make your first payment for the month on April 15th, and then for the year in April 15th, and then you get another one right there in June? Why can't they space that out a little bit more?
I will never understand. So they're called quarterly tax estimates,
right? And
they're not quarterly,
right?
So it's usually it's like April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and then January 15th. And I don't know why. And depending if it falls on a weekend, it might be 16, 17, etc. Yeah, it's kind of silly, and a lot of people don't make those estimates. But you get a little bit of a penalty, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's worth paying that penalty.
Right.
But Blakely does not like penalties and fees. So for you guys, it was all right, here's what you do then.
Yeah. Let's turn it over to the personal finance side a little bit, and we won't turn this into the David Ramsey show or anything, but there's people of varying ages listening to this. What are kind of the main tenets we need to start paying attention to with personal finances? Make sure we don't, end up in debt, number one, and are just taking steps towards, having to steal optimal agency's line to have agency later in life.
Yeah, I think the first thing is obviously being able to live on less than you make, right? So, if you're living on more than you're making, then you're going to be accruing debt. So that's step number one is, whether you got to do a budget or a reverse budget, whatever you got to do, you have to make sure your lifestyle expenses are less than what you're making. So if you're a W-2 employee and it is what it is, that's what you make, then you got to figure out how to spend less than you're earning. So that's step number one. If you do have debt already, you got to figure out how to spend less and account for making those debt payments, because high interest debt right now is killing a lot of people. This is credit cards, this is personal loans, but also the buy now, pay later.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize, that's kind of, it's not high interest because a lot of times it's 0%. But what you're doing is you're spending your future cash flows for something today that you couldn't actually afford
on a depreciating asset.
Yeah, most of the time most of the time it's on useless stuff that you don't actually need. You know what I mean? And so that's the other thing is get out of high interest debt, and then once you're able to do that, start saving. Have an emergency fund, usually 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe a little bit higher, and then you want to start investing. So I always try and get people that have never invested or never saved, just starting 1%, 5%,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get the wheels turning.
You want the habit to be built.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about, I'm a big James Clear fan, all about building the habits. And ideally you're going to want to get closer to probably 15 to 20% and just kind of doing that forever. But if we have to start at 1%, 2%, like, cool, that's fine. We got to start somewhere. And that's kind of,
those are the big rocks.
Those are big rocks, yeah.
If somebody's intimidated,
big rock.
It might be. Yeah,
the big rocks, and you kind of fill it in.
Check the bookshelf over there. Is there a Stephen Covey book on there?
I can't see that part.
You made me lose my train of thought. It was a good one too. Shoot. Okay. Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. If somebody's intimidated by the thought of investing because, like, I don't know what stocks to pick. Like, I don't know how to pick a winner. What if I pick one that goes down? I know this is kind of a basic question, but I think a lot of people don't know the answer. Like, where should somebody start if they don't know where to start with investing?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people think like investing in the stock market is kind of like going to Vegas and trying to figure out like which machine should I play or
right.
Which table should I go to. And the reality is investing doesn't need to be like that. When you're looking at individual companies, it's a lot harder to figure out like who's going to be the winner, who's going to be the loser. That's more like going to Vegas. So what you want to do is just look at low cost index funds. Try to simplify that and just kind of highlight what that is. But basically an index fund is like a basket. So the S&P 500 is the 500 largest companies in the United States of America. An index fund would just hold a little bit of every one of those companies. So if Digital Barbell, when they're in the S&P 500, does really well, and Dollars and Dumbbells is also in there and does really poorly, you didn't bet on either one. You're just going to get the cumulative result of the 500 companies. It's a lot safer that way. Historically, the market's going to go up 7 out of 10 years. You're going to have 3 down years, and you just kind of have to ride those out. And so I think that's what scares people the most is that when the market's going down, they're not thinking long term. They're thinking,
what if it keeps going down?
Yeah, and if it does, you have a lot more to worry about than your money. You know what I mean? Like if the stock market really goes to zero, which is like what people irrationally like worry about,
you got bigger fish to
we're
fry.
Probably in World War III.
Right.
And like you probably need to get in your bunker. You know what I mean? Like no, but in all seriousness, like we will have years. I mean, COVID, it went down 20-30% within a couple months span, but by the end of the year it was actually back up. It was kind of crazy. So there will be large scale events that impact the market. It all usually balances out in the long term. And that kind of brings me back is like, if you actually have money for short-term needs, don't invest it. Because that's another mistake that people do is they try and invest too early. They invest money that they're going to need in the short term, whether it's to buy a house, emergency fund, etc., because they're hustle. They're chasing those gains, right? Just those financial gains. And they can't like deal with the like having money doing nothing as like a safety net. And then they lose the money because they were, doing something a little silly and they needed the money in the short term. And it's like, the market can do bad things in the short term, but over the long term, it's pretty undefeated.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
We might have to hit them with the financial disclaimer at the beginning of the episode. Check with your financial advisor. This is not financial advice, legal advice, tax advice. But anyways, so I think, to sum up investing, you're investing into other companies and then rewarding yourself for their financial success. That's really all it is.
Yeah. You made me think of 2 things talking about that. Number one is like, if you commit to investing and saving and like making this part of your life, like you're going to do it a little bit over time. And that works to your advantage because of, like you said, the stock market's going up and down. So even if the stock market is down or investments are down or whatever, and you put money in, sometimes you're going to put it in when it's high, but it all averages out over the long term, and that actually works to your advantage too. What's the technical term for this?
Stocks are on sale.
Dollar cost averaging?
Yeah. So in layman's term, that's not technically what it means. So dollar cost averaging is actually when you have like a large lump sum of money and you want to invest it and you would spread it out over time to get that benefit. When you're actually just doing it because that's the cash flow you have and that's just consistently investing.
Okay. Which is a huge advantage.
But when the market's down and my clients reach out to me and say, hey, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, do you want to buy more? Like, what do you mean? What are we going to do? Like, hey, they're on sale. You want more? Like, what are you talking about? No. So like, I work with a lot of younger individuals, so that's a benefit. Joking aside, if you're a retiree, if you're older, you got to live off that money. So understandably so, you'd be a little more risk averse and probably not have as much money into the stock market, because you're going to have to withdraw those funds at a lot. Like, that's more short-term money. So I know you have, clients listening from all ranges. So younger clients, that's awesome. And it's really helpful for them building their wealth. But it's very scary for, an older retired client.
And then the second thing you made me think of was, and I'll give this advice so you don't have to put yourself out there, but if you have that short-term money, that's kind of your emergency fund, and you're like feeling this temptation, I got to get it working for me. There are, quote, safe ways to invest that money so it's less at risk, but still earning something. Just Google for high yield savings accounts.
Yeah, a lot of online bank accounts, Ally, Capital One, Marcus, American Express, they're going to get you 4 to 5%.
Right.
I'll go on record on this one. This one's fine. If you have a savings account at like Bank of America, Chase, like, go see what your rate is. It's probably 0.01 to 0.03%.
Yeah.
So if you've got 10,000, 100,000 sitting in cash at those places, you could be earning a lot. I am not that good at math in my head. I would be like, you could be earning X amount.
Let me get my abacus.
But like, if you move that over to, Ally, for example, I think they're probably paying a little over 4 right now. You could be earning significantly more on that money.
Yep. And like, one thing that Blakely and I do is we look at the interest that our savings, our like rainy day fund, is earning every month, and shows you exactly how much interest you made, and we move that money over to retirement just to like play a little bit of catch up and like take that money off the top. It impacts our budget not at all, and it's just extra money that we're paying ourselves. So
exactly, because once you have a sufficient emergency fund, you don't really need to keep it growing. So like, basically what you guys are doing is just kind of, I'll make up a number.
We're
say
giving
it's
it
30,
a haircut.
Yeah, exactly. Say it's 30,000. You're just, it grows to, a little bit. You just bring it back down to 30, and you're just redirecting the money towards other goals. It could be retirement, investing. Hey, it could be spending. One of the goals could be to spend a little bit more, take a trip, etc. But you're just leaving money on the table if you don't explore that option.
Yeah. You just made me think of a little example here, like, putting this money in like accounts that are earning for you is really making your money work for you behind the scenes without you doing anything, which is that we're going to have a hard transition here. You ready? Step on the brakes. It's just like building muscle. It builds you up to where you have a metabolic tissue on your body that's building your strength, burning calories in the background, even while you're doing nothing. How was that transition?
I don't know what you just said.
You're fired.
No, the point is right. Like, you're trying to build up enough assets where eventually they're earning enough themselves where you gain that freedom, the agency. I know that word, I had to look that up. I didn't know what that word meant. I started hearing it quite a bit. Patrick and John started using it. I said, Patrick, what does that word mean? Anyways, that freedom that you want, and eventually you can cash flow that without maybe working. I'm not saying the goal is to not work. I'm not really into the FIRE movement. Some people are.
The what?
The FIRE movement.
What's that?
You never heard of FIRE?
I've heard of FIRE, but in a different context, probably.
Not with the matches. Financial independent, retire early. Yeah, so it doesn't interest me because I don't really want to retire early.
Yes, neither.
But the FI part is pretty appealing, right?
Okay.
That should ultimately be the goal for everyone. So then you can just do what you love to do, and as entrepreneurs, that's kind of what we're doing. So retiring early, maybe not fit, but you see this, right? You work with elderly clients. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's out of their control. Things happen, and you might hit a point in your life sooner than you may have thought, but where you do have to retire. You have a cancer scare, you have things just happen.
Yeah,
so,
disabilities.
Being able to be independent as early as possible in life, that's what you're doing by building wealth. That's what saving and investing is allowing you to do, is just kind of have that flexibility and freedom later on in life to be able to, hey, I need to retire? Cool, whatever.
And that's
Want to keep
exactly
working? Cool, whatever.
That's exactly what like building up your physical capacity and strength does for you when you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. It sets you up to be able to enjoy the width of life, God willing. When you get to the retirement years, you're not like, limited in your mobility where you can only walk 25 feet before you get winded and you can't get down on the floor to play with grandkids and all that kind of stuff.
I thought it was just to let me eat whatever I want.
Did you enjoy your sandwich for lunch?
I did. It was very good. Thank you.
Let's talk about your own experience with training. I think you popped out of the womb and immediately went to the barbell. Well, you did tell us you've been working out for a long time. What's kind of your history with training and exercise?
Yeah, I didn't start working out until after junior year of high school.
Okay.
I was a see this pole if you're watching on YouTube. I think I was skinnier than this mic stand.
I've actually seen the picture you sent me from you were a teenager, I think.
Yeah, don't put that on there. Yeah, I was like 125 pounds. I'm about 6 foot. I think I was probably about, all right, I'm like 5'11".
I was gonna say, if you're 6 foot, so am I.
All right, I might have been 6 foot then, but I'm about, I'm 5'11", 6 foot. We'll see. I was 125 pounds coming out of junior year of high school.
Then, yeah.
The ladies didn't really care for
flocking.
that. No. So I had a lot of friends who were more into sports, and I played basketball all the time, but nothing else. And they were more into lifting, and I just kind of gave them shit. Can I say that on here?
You just did.
No, well, you can edit it. I just kind of made fun of them, but it was more of an insecurity, really. I was like, kind of wish I had that. And so one of them called me on it one day and just said, "I'm picking you up in the morning. We're going to the gym."
Really?
And I said, "Okay." And he was like, "Wait, really?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." Like, it's kind of my opportunity. And I fell in love. I've been training.
Awesome.
That's now probably, I'm old. 14 years ago, 15 years ago.
You said you're bad at math. So.
Yeah, and so I've been training ever since. I think there was like one hiatus where I took like 3-4 months off because of my shoulder. But multiple knee surgeries, trained through that. So I really haven't had much of an extended period off from training for the past 14, 15 years.
That's really impressive. And somehow,
doesn't look it though.
You were what?
Said it doesn't look it though.
And then so we worked together. We were your client for a while, and then I somehow roped you into doing one of our programs. I don't remember how our Jedi.
Yeah, it went something like this. Like, "Hey, I have a pretty solid idea for you, Justin." I said, "Oh yeah, what's that, Jonathan? You should do one of my programs."
You see that marketing genius right there, or the giant mind trick? All right, so you did one of our 8-week programs. I think you actually did 2.
Yeah, I think I rolled into the second one. Yep.
And now we're working together one-on-one on a more customized program, which is fitting because you have a small child at home, you have scheduling issues, and we have a really creative workout structure right now where you do 2 days at a gym, and then I write you 2 at-home workouts. And we were talking while we were working out about all the information that you need in the world to get in good shape is on the internet, on YouTube, whatever. So with that being said, and with your long history of training experience, why do you pay me to be your coach?
One, don't tell my wife that I pay you to be my coach. If you're listening to this, he's just kidding. For a while, I kind of asked I'm like a DIYer at heart. I think it's the finance guy in me. I try and, pay for everything in time, unfortunately. And I think as an entrepreneur, I'm learning a little bit more about time's a very valuable resource. Now I have a child. And so, for me, I love just being able to open up the app, be like, all right, this is what Jonathan said I'm doing today, and do it. I also I'm getting older, having a kid. My nutrition is not where it should be. And I know that. And so I don't love cardio, and I probably wouldn't do cardio. And so when I had the kid, when I had our baby back last March, 2023, I had gotten up to probably, I think it was 211, 212. I was kind of like, this isn't terrible, but if I let this keep going, this is probably going to get out of hand quickly. And I've just seen so many people, once it gets out of hand, it's harder at my age. I'm not terribly old, but there's just a lot of responsibilities fighting with my time. So that's why I was like, let me just get ahead of this, and let's get Jonathan on my side and help me do this. Yeah.
You do a really good job at sending form check videos in too. And I think it's been, even though you've been doing this a long time, I'm not trying to pat my own back and say I'm an expert coach here, but I think I've been able to provide some feedback on some things that
absolutely
kept you from hurting yourself, continuing to make progress.
Yeah, I did tend to get hurt.
We all face little setbacks here and there, but that's what defines us, is overcoming those things.
Yeah, no, and it's, it's the crazy part is always a very minor cue. It's think people probably think that there's going to be, and then this applies to me too as like a financial advisor, these major changes. It's like they're really usually not. Like it's really a minor thing. Like, here, bring your hands in a little bit on the cross. Actually, my bench press, I've been trying to grow my chest for like 14, 15 years, and I'm still trying. And like the first bench press video I sent you, you were like, why are your hands so far out? And I fixed that, and within like 2 weeks I was like, wow, I feel this, like I can feel the stimulus in my chest significantly more. And I texted my buddy who's also been struggling to grow his chest, and I was like, hey, maybe you should move your hands in.
That's funny. I just sent out an email to our list yesterday, I think it was, about kind of the opportunity cost of everything that we do. And that's one of the things that like I'm just going to keep hammering on, because I really believe that if somebody is willing to invest the time in the gym, and especially like in like buying a program to follow, they should really get results out of that. Otherwise, it's a giant opportunity cost wasted on, you know, the effort you're putting in, and you're not getting results. So like, I'm just going to keep like doing that, because I really feel passionately about making people get the most out of the time they're willing to spend.
Well, and I think that's the whole like value of coaching, right? Like we were talking about earlier, it's like education's out there. I mean, ChatGPT, Google, like coaches put out free programs. Like I could go get a $15 program from, you know, Matt Frazier or something like that, right? But for me, what I want is like the one-on-one custom accountability, and like there's also a little bit of a competitive thing. Like, you know, we were working out earlier, I was like, what did you get? Oh, okay, I'll get 9. You know what I mean? So like I just know myself well enough to know like a little extra push to kind of get an extra rep or you know, do better form is kind of what I needed. And I think that's the value of a coach, honestly.
I think one of the shortcomings of like the app-based programs that are out there is that you type in your results for the day, you hit the complete button, and it goes off to an Amazon cloud server, and that's the end of it. But like the beauty of what we're doing is like when you hit the complete workout button, I'm looking at what you did.
You're looking, and you know, like if I cheated that, right? Because you can cheat yourself by, you know, I could just say I did whatever. Like I'm not recording every set.
Right.
But after a couple of weeks, you're going to be like, something's not right. You know what I mean? You're going to tell by my progress and stuff like that. So, you know, I think when there's no one there to hold you accountable, some people are really good at holding themselves accountable, and kudos to them. But, you know, what's the saying? You go farther together, or you go faster alone, but farther together, something like that.
So like with the challenges with having, I remember when we first started working together, you would actually bring your daughter to the gym. Talk about like transitioning to staying consistent with all the added responsibilities, and how did you do it?
You just do it.
Wait, there's got to be some kind of hack.
No, there's no hack. It's just like, you know, I was talking to you and Blakely earlier and about this transition, and it was like, there's legitimate reasons why I could skip training every single day. Like I could not train at all and like justify it in my mind. But it's just such a slippery slope, because once you become okay with it one day, the next day it's a little easier to justify, and then, you know, find yourself not working out. And so for me, I just build it in, and if she's got to come along for the ride, if it's got to be a little bit of shorter workout, and then so be it. That's why we do the custom one now, right? Because when I was doing the programs, I had an apartment gym. We've moved since then, so I don't have a home gym. So we kind of make it work for 2 days at home with some bands and I think like a 10-pound kettlebell or something like that. You're like, oh, yay. But, you know, I'm able to sneak out to the gym for 2 days a week, and I don't actually bring her with me. We had a gym local that had a daycare, and they actually closed it down. So I don't have that option now. So it's like I just have to plan ahead of time and figure out which days am I going to go. And I'll go out of order. I'll do the program out of order sometimes, and it is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's all mentally. Like you do it.
Yeah,
just find a way to do it. There's no secret sauce. I wish there was, you know.
But like I always say this on this podcast, but you're going to get better at whatever you practice doing. So if you get better at practicing, getting in the gym and doing what you can, overcoming excuses, then that will slowly become easier over time. If you get practiced at being like, I'm not going to do it today because I'm tired and I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing, you're going to get better at that too. And before you know it, like you said,
yeah, that becomes so easy.
It's 6 months away from the gym, and now you're facing like, I got to get this giant rock rolling again. No, let's just keep it rolling a little bit. And there will be a time where your schedule clears up. Maybe, you know, when she goes off to college or.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, you know, I said earlier, I'm a big James Clear fan. So everything's habits for me. And everyone listening to this has habits. They're either good, they're bad, but you have habits. You know, you might not think it, but if you stop and audit your day, audit your week, like, they're there. They're there. You're doing something.
Yep.
Whether it's you're spending too much time on social media, there's time there. You can go through and you can find time to do 30 minutes. I mean, I won't, you're the expert there, but 30 minutes, 60 minutes, a couple days a week, like, there's time. You can find time.
You just have to do an honest audit. And back to what I said earlier, look at the opportunity cost of some of those less productive things that we mindlessly do because of habit, and be willing to make a change. All right. I don't want to keep you much longer.
I was like expecting Blakely to like wave her hand somewhere. She said we had a 30-minute hard cap.
How long has it been?
I don't know. I think your intro was 15 minutes.
Tell people where they can waste their time on social media following. Where are you at online? Remind everybody what your podcast is called in case they're not watching it on YouTube and don't see it on your shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram, Justin Green, FB as in financial planner. You can find me there. Podcast is the Dollars and Dumbbells podcast. It is geared towards online health and fitness coaches. But if you're interested in this podcast, there's probably a lot of similarities. So you might enjoy it even if you're not a coach. But yeah, those are the two main places that you can find me hanging out.
There you go. We'll either see you next time you're back in Texas or if we venture up your way in the camper.
I think it might be when you venture up my way. This humidity is killing me.
The main thing you were afraid of coming here was
snakes.
Seeing some snakes.
Jonathan's got a lot of grass out here. But no, it's been awesome. I'm really glad I was able to, rent a car and make the trip up here. It's, a little bit of a drive, but it's been really fun. And, meeting you and Blakely in person, getting to work out, grab some lunch, and just have a good conversation all day.
Do you think people realize that we're just like putting on a fake persona on social media and on the podcast, that we're actually just like monsters in real life?
Yeah, this guy's terrible. Oh, such a jerk.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Go check out Justin's stuff online, and we will see you next week.